So when you're applying for jobs as a junior developer, particularly entry level, and particularly at the moment, it can seem like you're against dozens, if not hundreds, of other applicants. And how do you possibly stand out in such a crowded market? We'll talk about that. I've got Ishaq with me here today. He's a software engineer over at Holland and Barrett, and also founded juniordeveloper.careers, a job board specific to sort of entry level and junior developers. So hi, Ishaq. Thanks for joining us. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Chris. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm good. So I came across you like I do with most people, sort of on LinkedIn. You're quite active on there and sort of posting, and particularly came across your sort of junior job board. So I guess tell me a little bit about yourself and kind of how you've got to where you are today.
Absolutely. So it all started for me in this industry around 2019 when I went through a career change. Um, Difficult and dark time, but I persevered and got through. And one of the things that came off the back of it was once I sort of did that transition and gone through my career change and landed my first job, it was like, okay, that was incredibly hard. Where were all the resources? There was nothing. And at that time, I went on a boot camp, and the people around me, I was helping a lot. I was helping them with what I was doing. So when I was updating my CV, I was like, "Oh, try this." When I was doing an interview, I was like, "Oh, I got asked this, and maybe you should answer it like that." Um, and I sort of made a pledge to myself around that time. I said, "Well, I'm going to help." Once I got into the industry, I said, "I'm going to help as many people as I can as well." And over the years, that sort of snowballed into what has now become, a pretty big reputation. It's one that I can't really escape. Not from what I've tried, I suppose. As somebody who's willing to help, and it's resulted in helping hundreds of people. With things like, okay, how do you handle those interviews? How do you handle interview rejection? What can you expect from your first year in tech? How can you thrive? How can you do better? How should your CV look? What sort of projects should you look at? Um, so yeah, the short story, the short version of it.
Yeah, I guess this probably isn't going to help. You're probably going to be flooded with a bunch of new people asking you for a load of help about all those questions that you just mentioned. But
I'm still
um,
playing catch up because I went on holiday, so I'm still playing catch up on helping replying to a few people. So if they're watching this,
uh,
that will get to you eventually.
Yeah, for sure. Well, fair play to you for kind of doing your bit to kind of help. Same reason that we started this, to be honest. Like we used to do live events, but this seems to be a lot easier to get the information to people and kind of schedule and stuff like that. And we kind of realized that as a recruitment agency, we obviously work on junior positions, but not loads at the entry level.
Mhm.
But we had the network to be able to connect entry level people with like people like yourself that were keen to kind of help the next generation of developers. So similar sort of reason as to why we did it. And I like you said, we're going to talk about sort of not being generic. Don't be generic is the title of the episode.
Yeah.
I guess why did you choose that topic?
So if we had had this conversation last year, I probably would not have chose that topic title. If we had this conversation 6 months ago, I wouldn't have chose this topic title. However, many people are finding themselves in sort of a precarious position now because a lot of funding has come through from the government, from the Department of Education, which is fantastic, right? It's funding for the boot camp, so they're funding people to come through the boot camp and get their experience into tech. That's a good thing, but it's also a bit of a catch-22 situation, right? Because now tons of people have applied to the boot camps, they're getting on it, and the market's being flooded with people at that level. Now, to make that even worse, to rock the boat even further, there is sort of a lull in jobs at the entry level at the minute, right? Because of all the layoffs, companies are not really taking a gamble on a person which is new in their career. They're rather taking the gamble on mid to senior level positions. So for the people who are trying to get into the industry, to answer the question, don't be generic is the only way, right? Everyone's so far coming through the boot camps, majority of the same, same sort of learning, same sort of experience, and same sort of projects. If you really want to stand out right now, which you need to do right now to get your first job, it's entirely don't be generic. Go a little bit further.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess what does that say? Say for example, we're talking to people that have just graduated or like a couple months into their job search. When you say don't be generic, like is that in like every aspect of the kind of process, or is it in your outreach? Is it in your profile? Like where are we kind
Mm,
of like mainly
So,
talking
so
about?
I'd say there's two main areas, right? So it's not in places like your CV. In places like your CV, you don't want to do things like, extra. fancy layouts and colors and stuff because it doesn't work. A recruiter's going to look at your CV 10 seconds. They can't abstract the information. It's going in the bin. I'm talking in two particular places. One is your projects. So your standard projects are like your to-do app and your web apps, etc., which people tend to do and tend to follow. They're all over Google, YouTube, front end masters, whatever website you use. And the other aspect is your approach to finding a job. So for the most part, it'd be looking on your online jobs board, maybe 1, 2 times a week, sending out 2 or 3, 4 applications. But what you should be doing is concentrating on all aspects of recruitment. Okay, so you've got your online jobs boards, which you go through, use mine or use whichever one you want. Mine aggregates from the others anyway, so if it makes it easy for you, use mine, but explore all the others. But then there's the other aspects to recruitment, right? There's networking. You should be out there, you should be at networking events because a lot of recruiters go to networking events to find people. You will make friends with other developers who work at companies who will have positions opening. And if you make, that sort of acquaintance, that relationship, they'll remember you. And they'll be like, hey, there's a job opening at my company. Why don't you come and apply? I'll do you a referral. And then there's the online networking aspect, getting yourself a personal brand, which I know you've done episodes on before. I think that's what Yusuf's episode was on, personal branding.
Yeah.
Um, so again, that's three avenues to a job, which most people won't be doing. They'll be doing one and they'll be doing that half-heartedly. So by implementing those other two strategies, you've got a three-way angle. You've got a trident approach to landing your first job, and you're expanding your network and you're growing your future net worth from that as well.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess talk to me first of all about networking events. I know you were recently at or ran one over in Manchester.
Yeah.
How what's the best place for juniors to find either like online or in person networking events?
So I like to use the Meetup website and app because I find a lot of tech events are on there as well. So I'd highly suggest people use that. Plus, LinkedIn is another good tool because people tend to share around this, and there's channels for each or pages for each sort of group or company who will advertise around. But Meetup's probably the best approach. Register and join the groups that you're interested in. Um, One of the benefits of the one that I did was that it was primarily aimed at entry and junior level people. So we had 3 talks. One was including myself because unfortunately one of our speakers, Kat, had to drop out, but hopefully she'll be speaking at the next event. So I sort of had to do an off the cuff, talk, which I weren't really prepared for, but it went down well, thankfully.
Love that.
So it's look for ones which are based around things that you're interested in as well. So JavaScript groups are very popular, front end groups, React groups. Get out there. A lot of people are hesitant, but you'll find that tech people are very friendly. We're all quite socially awkward, so you know we're going to welcome you in a socially awkward way and befriend you. Unfortunately,
No, for sure. That's great though. And I think it's probably one of those things that people that are looking for work might think if there was a jobs fair, like that might be something that they'd be like, yes, I'll definitely go to it because that's a direct route to a job. But they might not think like I want a React job. I should go to a React like meetup and meet people within the industry, right?
well, I mean, the jobs fair approach is good. It's something I've been looking into setting up as well. However, a lot of companies are not really bought into the whole jobs fair thing, especially at that level, because you get flooded with a lot of people and the return on investment tech typically isn't there. It's a big thing over in the USA. I know they still do a lot of it, but for here, they still do it for grads at university. So it's something I'm exploring and hopefully I'll bring a new angle to it in the near future. But right now, I mean, a meetup essentially is a mini job fair, or you could treat it like that because it is, 9 out of 10, more than that. 10 out of 10 will be sponsored by a tech company, and there will be tech representatives there from all different companies delivering talks or just in the audience, and they're all there for the same reason: learn, network, and a benefit of that, a plus side, is that you're going to hear about jobs, possibly even before they go to market, or which companies are hiring.
Yeah, for sure. Because funny you mentioned the US. We did quite a lot in my previous company. We sponsored them as a recruitment agency, but it was always at a company's office, and it wasn't
Yeah,
like come here, we're hiring, like come do this thing. It was around a topic, like a recruitment
yeah,
agency sponsored it. It was in a company's office, and then
yeah,
at the end, like you said, like at the end of everyone's talk, people would always be like, "Oh, by the way, we're hiring for such and such, such and such and such and such." Like because they were just like, oh, whilst I'm here, I might as well talk about it. And like you said, some of those
yeah,
positions might not even be online. And
yeah,
I think the biggest thing about hiring a junior in particular is that so much of it is about kind of like personality and like people taking initiative and stuff like that. So if you're actually able to meet with someone, like
Yeah.
I think people can almost decide to hire you like on the spot, like if they build a
Well,
connection with you right as a junior.
I mean, part of the work that I'm doing with the website, sort of the phase two of what I'm trying to approach, is like a CV less, or bypassing the CV and interview. Right, we go on soft skills because at entry level, it's the soft skills that we're interested in, not necessarily the technical skills. We want somebody who is eager to learn, but somebody that we can teach. Someone that's receptive to communication, to teamwork, and who's not going to get sort of bogged down when the work gets too much. And if you can put across your attitude because you've met face to face, right? The next person that you sit next to at a meetup might be the CTO of a company who's thinking about taking somebody on at that level. And if you just spent 2, 3 hours speaking to that person, whoever that may be, they're already thinking this person's a great fit for our company. You know, what's
Yeah.
withholding, what's next? It's the application. You've already passed the skills, the culture fit because you just spent
Yeah,
2 hours talking to someone.
kind of doing it in reverse then, aren't you?
Almost, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, essentially you are, aren't you? Because that's what culture fit's about. If the CTO really likes you and whether that's arbitrary or not, it doesn't matter because you've got along and they know you're going to integrate into
yeah.
the team. That's more important at that level, and you've just proven that, you
Yeah,
know?
for sure. And I think the thing that people don't think about so much, like I was always like this as a like younger recruiter going to networking events. I would speak to someone, and if they weren't hiring, like right now, I was like, you're a waste of time. Like I should go speak to someone else. But a lot of the time, it's those like second, third degree connections, like whether it's even that night. Like I've had sometimes before, like I'll speak to someone, and then they'll introduce me to someone else because they're like, you're a recruiter, they're looking for
Yeah,
someone, you
they
guys
bench up.
should talk,
Yeah.
like, or it's further down the line in like a couple of weeks, like someone's dropped your business card or whatever over to someone else, and like you just
Yeah, but
have a
you,
good conversation with someone, and they carry that on for you to other people, right?
Yeah, but you see, people often forget. I mean, what's the point of a networking event? It's not necessarily about that moment, or that precise moment at that time, or that precise person. I get recommendations. So if I meet somebody at an event, which I have done, quite often what they'll do is they will send a message to me and to somebody else and be like, "Oh, I think you two have some crossover, by the way. Introduce yourselves," or "Here,
I love
Ishaq,
that.
meet this person." And it's happened more than you know, and it still happens to people who I may not have spoken to regularly. Even at the event, I might have met them once, but they will still continuously be like, "Oh, meet this person, meet that person," just because they've met. We've got along. They know like my mission and the kind of person I am, and it's just the way it works. See, my
Yeah.
daughter's just about to sneak in. Get out.
Absolutely fine. So yeah, like I think like you said, one of the biggest things is networking from that aspect.
She's gonna be a pain. Yeah, she's going.
Yeah. One of the biggest things can be networking, but one of the other ones that you mentioned was obviously the kind of projects that you're putting forwards. Like
Yeah,
I think, like you said, there are your one or two that everyone seems to have. Like,
yeah.
what would you say someone's like either got a portfolio that they're not happy with, wants to redo it, or just hasn't started yet? Like, where would you recommend someone kind of starting with their portfolio if they wanted to do it from scratch?
Okay. So the first things first is always have a portfolio, right? Start with a website. It doesn't have to be amazing. It can be fairly simple, just an about you website. Everyone who comes through a boot camp or everybody who wants to break into tech should have a website. Now, some people may go against that. However, we're in a very difficult time and you need to take every opportunity you can to stand out. So have your website, a simple React app. It doesn't have to be complicated, as I've mentioned, a little bit about you, what you've achieved, your accomplishments, and that's it. That's your main starting point. Now, in terms of your follow-on projects, so I'm not saying don't do some of the generic projects, right? Because everybody needs to build a level of experience. So do some of the generic projects. However, if you really want to stand out, build something which nobody else has built. And that's only going to happen. Again, I'm not talking about go build Spotify, something, that's possibly going to change the world and cost you hundreds of thousands of pounds. It can be really simple. When I first got into this industry, I built an app, so it was an iPhone app, And basically, what all it did was this, right? So if you were out with your friends or you couldn't, or you're at home and you couldn't decide on what you wanted to eat, all you did was load the app, shake your phone, and it spin through, and it'd be like, okay, so Chinese, or it'd give you a suggestion, Indian food, Chinese, fish and chips, whatever that was. It'd give you a suggestion of about 10, 15 different things, right? And it was really
I need
stupid,
that for
but
like Netflix. Yeah.
that's exactly, yeah, it could have been used for
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
Pick a series because you don't know what to watch, or what to binge next. But you see, it works, right? And when I went for my first job, all the people I was going against pretty much had the same projects. We all came through the same boot camp. We all had the same experience, which was very minimal. However, I had my app, right? And nobody else had something which they'd thought of, researched, built, and something so stupid and so small got me a job just because it was different, right? It was
And
unique.
super relatable as well, right? To pretty much anyone that you'd speak to.
They loved it. I used to show it to everyone. I had it on my phone for ages, and I'd be like, "Oh, look, check this out! I built this. It's so cool." And I'd be really proud. I'm really proud of it as well, because I wish I still had it. To be honest with you, it was pretty cool. But my mobile development skills are long gone, unfortunately. Uh,
So you don't still have it for whenever you're deciding what to eat.
Unfortunately, no. Now I just struggle like a mere mortal. But but you see, the point is it was unique, right? It wasn't generic. It was different, and it was very simple. It only took me a few hours to build. So build something unique, something that solves the problem if you can. It doesn't have to be amazing, and don't wait to apply until you've built it. Keep building it and apply and put your links in your CV and your GitHub and show people, oh, by the way, this is what I'm building. This is really cool because you've still got your online portfolio, so you still got something physically to show. And then you've also got something to speak about, which is a bit more cool, which is going to stand out a little bit more.
For sure. And what about obviously that's great if you get to the point where you're getting interviews and you can show these cool projects. But what
Yep.
about getting your foot like in the door? How can you stand out against everyone else from there? Is it just having those projects and submitting them with your application, or is it something different with the way that you're applying?
So
Or
there isn't necessarily a better way to apply. There is one way. So number one is having it as part of your application. So have them hosted online. So whatever you built should be available through the click of a link. It should be on your CV. So because when somebody goes on, when I'm hiring for people at the junior level, which I've done in companies before, I'll go through the CV and I check through the links. So to make sure they're working and not broken, which I mean, you wouldn't be surprised how many of them actually broken links. Because I always click through and be like, oh, it's so cool what they built. Let's interview that person. So that's one side. The other side is reaching out on LinkedIn to whoever the hiring manager is. Oh, hi, by the way, I've applied to this job, blah, blah, blah. Here's something I've built recently. I've done, send the link. Again, it's online. They can view it. And you'd be surprised how many people would respond and be like, oh, that's really cool. Entry level. I wasn't expecting that. I'll keep an eye out for your CV. So, two aspects.
for sure. I think people are when hiring for juniors because there is so much noise, people are looking for someone to make it easy for them, right? Like so if you can just reach out and be like, I just applied, like here's a link to something that I built recently that I think is relevant to you guys, like someone's gonna look at that, right?
So, here's a little bit of an insider tip, right? When it comes to hiring from boot camps, there is a difference in in the type of people coming through, right? Same like college and university, right? You're gonna get the people who get like the 1-1, you're gonna get the 2-1, the 2-2s. There's the difference in the quality of the candidate. So with people, when companies are hiring from boot camps, they're a bit worried that the people that they're going to interview or the people that they're going to see are not going to be at the quality that they've been used to over the years from university, from 4 years of university. So if you can reinforce the confidence that you have learned and you've developed the skills just by reaching out, sending a few links of what you've built, it'd go a long way. Because that would then negate the worries that they're having, of what you've learned and what you're capable of.
Because I think that's the thing, isn't it? There's just something in the back of your mind being like, this person didn't know how to code like 12 weeks ago. Like, can I really trust them to work in my organization as a developer?
Yeah.
So I think it's just taking that almost like that unease away, isn't it? And I think one of the things that you said about those links, like it'd be interesting to see. I don't see a lot of juniors with like their links like on just on their LinkedIn or in their like about me or anything like that. Like, it'd be good to have people
Yeah.
just kind of making their portfolio sort of work for them, right? Like if they could have it literally on their LinkedIn as like the first thing on there, like people will
Yeah.
click on them, and if they're good enough, people will reach out to you rather than the other way around.
They will, of course they will, because if with a fully optimized LinkedIn, you're going to get pulled up in recruiter searches anyway, and when a recruiter searches through your LinkedIn, they're going to follow those links to see, right? Because at the end of the day, it's your job to put the best people in front of the companies that you want, because you're not going to put people who you are not confident that the company is not going to want to interview, right? It's a waste of everybody's time. So it's all about reinforcing confidence because like I said 12 weeks is not a long time. So if you're going to look at I don't know 30 CVs and you've got four from a 4 year four year students who have been at university for 4 years and the rest are all boot camps who've completed a 12-week boot camp, there's a good chance you are going to lean towards the university students, right?
Yeah.
Just because that 4 years does correlate to a lot more experience. However, 12 weeks in a boot camp plus a couple of months of learning, whether that's before the boot camp or after the boot camp, plus a few projects, will actually put you ahead of most of the people in university in terms of real term application development. Not computer science theology, but implementation on a web dev level. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because I actually spoke to one of the owners of a boot camp called Coder Foundry in another podcast, and he talked
I
about
think I heard
in
Code
his
Foundry.
book, yeah, they're a .NET boot camp out in the US, and he
Yeah,
talked about like throughout the 4 years of university, they basically teach you a tiny bit of almost everything, but like
yeah,
not much that really like links together.
yeah,
Whereas them and I'm sure the boot camp that you went to and many others are basically teaching you how to be a developer and how to make these projects. So you can actually come out with more experience than someone like you said, not the computer science fundamentals, but in terms of
yeah,
actual website development, you actually have
yeah.
more experience than a more relevant experience than a lot of university grads.
You do, and it's a lot more modern. I mean, a lot of university education in terms of computer science is quite out of date, so they're learning a lot of out of date things in terms of what you probably consider in modern web development. But essentially, they're there to learn the computer science fundamentals, which they do come out quite strongly with, which does correlate better in the industry eventually, throughout the years when you're building more complex systems. So it is something even coming out of a boot camp where you should pay some attention at some point in your career. But it's almost like two sides of learning coming into one. I know students now who are coming out of university and then going into a boot camp to get the best of both worlds. Which I mean, if you think about it, makes sense, right? For
Yeah,
them.
for sure. I mean, it's an expensive way of doing it, but like,
I know
it's
you're putting a debt on top of a debt.
yeah.
Yeah,
But I mean, once you're in for like 30 grand, why not go 45? Like,
yeah,
um,
exactly.
but
Yeah,
but yeah, I think the other thing as well, like I speak to, there are still people that are stuck in not necessarily an old school mentality because some companies and the programs they're going to be working on, the computer science is very relevant, but
yeah,
like I do think some people are stuck with that is better. However, I am speaking to more and more development managers and VPs of engineering that actually really like the boot camp because they're basically saying if someone can learn to be a developer within 12 weeks, if they can apply themselves and like be good enough to
yeah.
be a junior in 12 weeks, like what are they going to be like in a year, like here? Like if they can learn everything from scratch within 12 weeks and be at a decent level and you can show that within your projects, like
Yeah.
they much prefer that than someone who's taken 4 years to do computer science.
So, what sort of inspiring this change now is one aspect is the diversity aspect, right? Because there's a big aspect of universities nowadays where they're saying, oh, well, the largest demographic of university leavers, especially in computer science, is like men. Then when you're talking in terms of ethnic minority, I think like it's like 60, 70% white men. And then you've got very small numbers of, BAME and people on top of that, which I kind of get because it obviously it's the way the country works, right? As the BAME representation grows in the country, then them demographics will open up and percentages will get wider. But right now, it's just a representation of the community essentially. But for companies, it's trying to push or it's trying to expand their hiring to bring in more diverse candidates, and that is primarily coming through boot camps now. So if you want to hire more women in tech and support more women in STEM or more BAME people gender diversity, then you're finding them in boot camps over university. So companies are having to use more boot camps. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is the people. So when you think about university, typically you're talking about a young person who doesn't really know what they want to do in the next 5 years, whether they are going to stick as a software engineer or a software developer, or they're going to be like, well, this is not for me. I'm going to go do something else. But with a boot camp, for the most part, most of the people I've met are career changers, people with responsibilities, people with kids, people with bills to pay. So when they've decided upon, I want to be a software engineer, it's not been off the cuff. It's a commitment to say that I like this place. I'm going to make this, I like this industry. I'm going to make a success out of this. And you can't put that fire out. That's at 9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, I will take a gamble on that person because I know what it takes to change your life or pivot your life under incredible, stress and responsibilities to carve out on your career to improve your life and that of the people around you. It's not easy. So once someone's made that commitment, I'm fully convinced that they are going to be awesome.
For sure. And I think there's so like if you give someone that first opportunity, like they're gonna be so not I don't know if grateful is the right word, but they're gonna stick around for a lot longer, probably on average, than
Yeah.
someone that is 2, 3 years experience that can move on as quickly and as easily as they need to. But I think investing in people that like it's their first job, you will get a lot back from them. Obviously, it's a learning curve to start with, but I think
Yeah.
you get a lot back and a lot of commitment from them.
So there is a strong loyalty aspect at that level, because, like you said, people are appreciative to learn, um, which is great. They should be, but at the same time, they need to be paid fairly. To put it kindly,
Yeah,
companies need to keep up with that because if you've got a junior and after a year and a half they're quite well versed, they will get a 20 grand pay rise going somewhere else. So you need to understand their market worth, and if you're not willing to pay them their market worth, then you're going to lose them. Um, and the other aspect is that it depends on the experience, right? I know you mentioned just before, because if a company takes somebody on from a boot camp and they have a bad experience, there's a good chance they're never going to take anybody on from a boot camp ever again, because they
yeah,
might take on somebody who is just, who may have got into it but not fully explored or not fully dedicated or fully understood what it was going to take. Or they may not have just clicked with the company. They may have thought there was going to be more support or there was going to be, less work or more work. I've spoke to people from all aspects. One of the things that I spoke about at our last tech event was how many people I've helped into tech, but I've also helped a lot of people, well, how many people I've helped into their first job, but how many people I've helped out of their first job because it's not worked out. So there are two aspects to that longevity and sort of loyalty aspect as well.
yeah, for sure. And you kind of wrote down earlier as well, like nailing down like a career path for people to go on as well. Like, and I think that is a big thing because I think some people like there's so much going on and there's so many different tools and languages and stuff to learn that some
Yeah,
people, particularly whilst they're searching, they'll see,
yeah,
oh, that job needs this. Like I'll learn a little bit of that. That job needs this. I'll learn a little bit of that. And they
yeah,
basically just try and learn and learn and learn and learn and just
yeah.
become almost like a jack of all trades. Like whereas some people obviously feel like they're missing out on jobs if they are just front end and like there's full stack jobs out there and stuff like that. So I guess what would be your advice about sort of like picking
Well,
career path to start with?
Chris, the latter of what you just described are the people who are going to be successful, right? We call it what do we call it? Silver spoon syndrome. Just chasing the shiny things all the time. I did it. We're all guilty of it, especially in this industry because tech's really cool. You want to try a little bit of this, a little bit of that. The problem you've got here is that okay, so I've been doing this for like 3.5 years now. Okay, I'm getting a promotion to senior engineer, but what's on my CV? On my CV is not Python, Java, JavaScript, Scala, not a list of things because I know it's just total bullcrap, right? Very few people are at that level and they can sort of code. Now, don't get me wrong, if I get put on a project with a different language, I'll pick it up, but it's not my core skill, right? It's JavaScript, and that's what's on my CV, and that's what my focus of my CV is. Now, if you're coming out of a boot camp after 12 weeks and you're telling me that you can code in Python, Java, and JavaScript, right? I don't believe you. And whenever I bring that up with people who do it on the CVs, all right, so what do you know about Python? What's a tuple? I don't know. Take it off your CV, right? Why is it on your CV? Unless you are intentionally trying to land a job in data science or data engineering, or you want to work with Python, then it makes sense, but then you better know about it. Now, in terms of like front end, back end, full stack, so most boot camps advertise their courses as full stack. In the industry, there's, it's also a running joke that about full stack engineers. Is it a myth? You probably yourself. Are they a myth? Are they a unicorn? A full stack engineer does exist, but you'll often find that they're not a specialist in either. They're more generic, and you very rarely find it at the entry level. So when somebody comes to me and they've been applying for jobs as a full stack developer, junior full stack, and like I'm not getting any responses, I say, and I spoke about this before as well. I say, okay, stop sending out full stack, concentrate your CV and focus it on front end, and create a second one for back end and start applying for front end jobs and back end jobs. 9 times out of 10, they'll start getting responses to the CV, right? They obviously you got to tailor your CV to the front end, use the front end keywords, you got to use your JavaScript, React, etc. And on the back end one, use your back end keywords, server side rendering, etc., whatever is picked up for the set of jobs that you're after. You get picked up a lot more. So concentrate on one or the other. If you don't know which one you want to do a CV for both, and worry about the full stack once you're in the role. If you join a company as a front end developer and in 6 months' time, a year's time, you turn around and say, "Oh, I want to do a bit more back end," there is no chance in hell they're going to say, "No, you're not doing that."
Yeah,
They're going to love that. Yeah,
yeah, for
I do it
sure.
now. You know,
Yeah, and like you said, everyone wants full stack developers. The majority of the time, they need a front end and a back end focused person, but like they want
yeah,
a full stack developer who can do both roles for half the money. So if you
yeah,
do get if you do get to the point where you're doing too much front end and you want to do some more back end, like every
yeah.
company would be happy for you to do so, if not encourage you to do so. So
They would.
I think that's good. And then I guess finally, like, tell me a little bit more about your job board that you've made,
Yes.
juniordeveloper.careers.
Yes. So juniordeveloper.careers I launched this year. So the initial launch was sort of a proof of concept. I wanted to do this for a while because of all the help that I've been delivering to people, but I was like, okay, let me get something sort of quick and dirty up and let me see if this has actually picked up and gains traction, which it has. It's been huge. So currently the way it works is it aggregates jobs from other boards, but also companies can put their jobs on directly as well. So we're obviously doing a lot of business outreach and trying to brown nose a lot of companies.
How
For
how you finding that?
want of a
That's
better word.
that's pretty much all my life is. So
Difficult at this level. Difficult at this
yeah,
level. I mean, if you turn around to a company and said, "Oh, I've got a database of 400 eager senior developers looking for roles," somebody'd bite your hand off, right?
yeah,
But do the same with with bootcamp grads or career changes, and it's a lot more difficult. So a lot of people use the website, but they don't see what I'm doing behind. The constant emails, the conversations, the essentially I'm promoting career changes and bootcamp people and self-taught developers to the top. I'm shouting their praises from the rooftops to every person and every company and every podcast, that will hear because it's all growth, right? So the website's working great. I've just started a crowdfunding campaign to try and get some money in because I want to move it to the next stage because
yeah. I
the
saw that this morning. That's awesome.
well, the PLC sort of it's approved, right? It's well needed, but the next stage is all right. How do we increase hiring, or how do we make hiring easier at this level? I've already made it quite easy in terms of the website. It's a very simple process, but how do I make that even easier? How do we now move away from CV based hiring into skills based hiring? How do I start preparing people? So, my focus is a lot on the people as well. How do I develop this platform into sort of content based as well, where I can put up quizzes? These are the questions that you might get asked on an interview. Have a goal, get yourself gamified, answer some questions and technical assessments, write some code. So I'm trying to move it onto that next stage, but you can't fund everything yourself, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I funded enough, and so I'm trying to hopefully raise a bit of capital off the back of the crowdfunding, which I can put into it, and move it to the next level.
yeah, for
I
sure.
think the next level would be super cool.
Yeah, and what is kind of like the end goal for that job board?
The end goal would be to it be an end-to-end recruitment process, but with a constant supply of candidates. So the benefit is that we will continuously be feeding people in. So it's not like I have to draw people in. I'm already bringing the people in because the jobs are there. So people eager to get into the industry. The second thing is going to be the content, the assessments, the quizzes, which obviously is going to prepare people for jobs, whether that's through the board or not. They'll be able to use that to get prepared. Um, and then it's the companies coming on and sending out these tests and inviting people in through the platform to say, take this assessment, or we're a great match, let's have a conversation. And it's the connection between the companies and the entry level people, but in a super smooth way where they can standardize, as we spoke before, they don't know the kind of the quality of the candidate they're getting through. So if we can build an assessment into that, it'll be winning. There'll be that,
Yeah.
there'll be no reason to say no.
Yeah, for sure. And I think for any companies that are already hiring for like entry level and junior developers, it's a no-brainer, right? I think some of the added tools, like if you could somehow try and work out a quiz or some kind of interviewing platform for like, are they proactive? Like, are they like able to collaborate within a team? Like all of the softer skills. Like I
Yeah.
think that would make like I guess the process of sifting through people and like actually hiring like a lot quicker and a lot easier.
So
Um,
I've got a dream. I do have a dream, and that dream is to have an AI assessment platform suite, which essentially
Quite
does a
different
game.
to Martin Luther King.
A very different dream, but both supportive of people and both inclusive. So maybe not that different. Um, but it's to have that inclusivity, right? And that is the goal is to have an AI assessment platform where a company can come on and say, okay, we're looking for somebody with high level of resilience, great level of teamwork, adaptability to change. They may be, for example, an agency who need somebody who can thrive under pressure, and then people can do they can invite people to do this gamified 3 minute assessment, and they can see is this person matched to our soft skills and requirements. Boom.
Yeah,
It's all there. It just needs fine tuning and some money behind it,
yeah,
as
for
with anything.
sure. Yeah, no, I think it's brilliant, and I think, like you said, like everyone comes out of a boot camp with these 12 weeks of education, but everyone is at such varying levels of like
Yeah,
ability, life experience, like all of that kind of stuff. And someone who's 40 with 12 weeks of coding is going to be suited much better to some organizations than others.
yeah,
Like to some organizations that 20 years perhaps in another industry like is going to be really useful because they've learned all of these soft skills about working in
yeah,
particular industries and all that kind of stuff, whereas someone else
yeah,
with 12 weeks coding experience who is only like 22, like they're going to be much more suited to another type of organization. But
yeah,
looking at their resumes and like their coding skills, they're
yeah,
almost exactly the same, but
yeah,
like everything behind the surface will make people
yeah.
a lot more suitable and kind of perfect for organizations. But like you said, it's just working out how to kind of match them up, right?
Well, that's it. And it's like you said, everybody's suited to something. There might be somebody, like you said, with those cross or with that various experience over 10, 15 years who would make a great consultant because their people skills are amazing, their conversations, they may have been in sales. So, you could transition that into being, a technical consultant, a technical architect, or, a software developer in a consultancy. And you've got somebody who you just need to teach the tech skills to because they can do everything else. Like, that's the benefit. So that's what I'm trying to aim for. And essentially, this platform, imagine a platform where essentially you could your max stage of interview would be two. Like it'd only ever have to be two. There'd be no three, four, five, 6 stage interviews because
Yeah,
they've already done a technical assessment when they join the site, right? And it's a very simple technical assessment at this level, not the algorithm type, which is already out there, something totally different, but very simple. So they can write code, and then they do the assessment, the AI based soft skills assessment. So you already know that they're a match in terms of their soft skills based on the data we've collated through the gamified assessment. I mean, get a phone with them, spend an hour with them, and then you've got your answer. You already know, it's yes or no.
yeah, for
It's
sure.
super simple.
Yeah, I mean that's problem one. I guess problem two, like you said, is getting more companies to hire at the junior and entry level, right? And I know you're doing a lot behind the scenes with this, but what can I and like other people like within the recruitment industry and software engineering industry in general, like what can we do to kind of push more hiring of kind of junior and grad engineers?
It's difficult. It's absolutely difficult. A lot of companies do hire, but just not at the level that we need to plug the digital skills gap because that's continuously growing, and not at the levels where DE&I is having a significant impact. Very, very small impacts. But if we want to, make tech more inclusive and more fair, we can't do that by fighting over the diverse people already in tech because there's a very small number of us. We need to do that by bringing in more people at the entry level and then letting them be the future leaders of, tomorrow, because the juniors of today tomorrow will be the seniors in 3 to 4 years, and then you can have tons of people you can battle over then. Um, but in terms of what people could do is it's promoting the quality of people, number one. So I'd say even over before promoting me on my website, it's the people, right? They're great people, they're great candidates, they have tons of soft skills, they're very eager to get into tech, and you wouldn't be taking that big of a chance on them. You could put them through an apprenticeship, which is even fully funded, mostly I think about 90 to 100% from the government. So most people can have a free person for a year, I think, is the way it works. So champion the people, then pointing them to platforms such as mine, or even directly go work directly with the boot camps. So I do speak to companies, and quite often they say, why shouldn't I go work directly at the boot camp? And I often throw them by saying, go do that.
Yeah.
Not in a rude way. I really wish you do. The only reason why I say use my platform is because I already speak to all the boot camps and I've already got the people. So you're not just getting maintaining one relationship, you're getting all of them, and you're getting people who are not on boot camps. You're getting people, who are also self-taught by themselves, or university graduates, or pre-university college students, etc. So it's just champion the platforms, the people, and keep shouting about it. And hopefully, eventually, it picks up.
Yeah, for sure. Well, one of the things we were just talking about this today, actually, I'm going to be doing a little bit of a kind of success stories like segment on this. So speaking to people that have recently landed jobs, and I might actually look at doing it from the reverse side as well of people that have recently taken on bootcamp grads and how great they've been and all of
Yeah,
that kind of stuff as well. I think that's a really really good idea for from that perspective. So
it's definitely worth
yeah,
it.
anyone that is currently looking for a junior job, juniordeveloper.careers. And if anyone wants to contact you, just don't, right? Because you're too busy.
So I've got too many people. No, send the message, but you might not get a response. And after about 2 weeks, you'll get a response, and you'll be like, "Whoa, he did read my message." It's like, yes, I do read the messages. It just takes me a while sometimes because I've got 3 kids and a life I've got to combat with, so I can't just throw all my time into replying to people's messages anymore, like I did used to a few years ago.
Yeah, love that. Well, thanks so much for your time. Really enjoyed chatting to you. And yeah, anyone that's listening, thank you for listening.
I very much appreciate it. Thank you for having me.